I handed over my future to save my father's life, or at least that is what I believed at the time. I drained my savings, signed a crushing loan, and pushed my body to the edge of collapse, all because my mother told me he was dying again. For years later, I learned something that made my stomach twist in a way no medical emergency ever could. My father had never needed that money. My name is Monica Hayes, and I just finished medical school, but the path that got me here nearly destroyed me. When I first started, I was proud, hopeful, and determined to become a doctor. I had worked hard for years to get there, and even though the journey was expensive, I had some savings and a plan. I thought if I stayed focused, I could handle anything that came my way. About 6 weeks into my first semester, I got a call from my mother, Diane. Her voice was shaking, and she sounded like she had been crying for hours. She told me my father's cancer had come back and that things were worse this time. She said insurance had refused to cover his treatment and that they needed $35,000 immediately or he would not be able to start chemotherapy. I did not hesitate. I transferred almost $12,000 from my savings that same night. It was everything I had managed to hold on to before medical school. The rest, I covered by taking out a private loan with a brutal interest rate. I remember signing those papers with trembling hands, telling myself that no amount of money was worth more than my father's life. That decision changed everything. Suddenly, I was drowning. My monthly expenses already stretched me thin, but now I had loan payments that felt impossible. I started working every job I could find. I worked as a phlebotomist early in the morning, tutored students in the evenings, and picked up shifts at the hospital cafeteria on weekends. I barely slept, barely ate, and constantly felt like I was falling behind. Even with all that effort, I still came up short every month. So I started donating plasma twice a week just to stay afloat. My body began to weaken, and I felt dizzy more often than not. One day during an exam, I blacked out completely. When they checked my labs, my iron levels were dangerously low, but I kept going because I believed I had no choice. While I was barely surviving, my twin sister Gabriella was planning her dream wedding. It was held in Napa Valley, surrounded by vineyards and luxury I could not even imagine at the time. There were hundreds of guests, elegant decorations, and everything looked like it belonged in a magazine. I told myself it did not matter, because my family was going through a crisis, and this wedding was just a brief moment of happiness. I never questioned where the money came from. My mother mentioned something about an inheritance helping cover costs, and I believed her. I wanted to believe her. At that point, I trusted my family completely, and I was too overwhelmed with my own struggles to dig deeper into anything else. Years passed and I pushed through medical school by sheer force of will. I graduated exhausted, but proud that I had made it. However, something always bothered me. My father never seemed as sick as I had imagined. His checkups appeared routine, and there were no signs of ongoing treatment. The story I had built in my head started to crack, so I began looking into it. I requested records, reviewed insurance claims, and went through every detail I could find. What I discovered made my hands shake. There were no chemotherapy bills, no denied claims, no massive medical expenses. In fact, the total cost of his care during that time was barely a few $100s. The letter my mother had sent me was completely fake. The truth hit me like a physical blow. The money I had sacrificed everything for had never gone toward saving my father. It had been used to pay for my sister's wedding. The dress, the flowers, the photography, all of it had been funded by the money I thought was keeping my father alive. I felt sick, betrayed, and furious in a way I had never experienced before. I tried to process it privately, but every conversation with my mother turned into denial and manipulation. She refused to admit anything, twisting the story until I almost doubted myself. That was when I realized I needed something stronger than a private confrontation. I needed the truth to be undeniable. When Gabriella graduated from medical school, she had a large celebration planned. I was not invited, which hurt more than I expected. Still, I decided to go. I prepared a detailed record of everything I had uncovered, including financial statements, forged documents, and proof that the medical emergency had never existed. I placed it in an envelope and left it on the gift table. During the event, someone picked up my card and read it out loud, expecting a heartfelt message. Instead, the entire room heard the truth. As the details unfolded, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversation stopped and people began whispering. My mother tried to interrupt, but it was too late. The evidence spoke for itself, and there was no way to silence it. The fallout was immediate and brutal. My father was devastated when he realized he had been deceived as well. Their marriage fell apart soon after, and he filed for divorce. Gabriella was in shock, struggling to understand how something meant to celebrate her life had been built on a lie. Her husband's family distanced themselves quickly, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. As for me, I was left to pick up the pieces of my own life. The anger did not disappear overnight, but something else began to take its place: relief. For the first time in years, I was no longer carrying the weight of that lie. I had faced the truth, exposed it, and reclaimed control over my story. Eventually, Gabriella and her husband reached out to me. They paid off the remainder of my loan, something I never expected, and together we created a fund to help medical students facing real emergencies. It felt like turning something painful into something meaningful, a way to make sure no one else would have to go through what I did. Now I am in my residency, building a life that finally feels like my own. I have learned to set boundaries, to question things that do not feel right, and to protect myself even when it is difficult. What happened to me will always be a part of my story, but it no longer defines me. I am not just someone who was betrayed. I am someone who survived it and came out stronger on the other side.